Ooh, everyone's favorite, significant figures. Why do we have significant figures in the first place? Number one, yes, many of you think that's the reason we have significant figures, and it does annoy high school students. And the reason why it annoys you is because you have no idea why they're there except just to get you to have points docked from your assignments. But there's another reason. The true reason, sig figs communicate. So let's go ahead and look at an example. So let's say I go step on the bathroom scale in the morning. As I step on there, it's going to read, and actually this morning it said 196.5 pounds. That tells me something about my mass. Now what if I stepped on there and instead it told me 196.51238936 pounds? Well, you probably wouldn't believe your scale. This number is very precise. This is the scale and what it said at my house. Because this is a scale I bought at Target, okay? It's what you need in your bathroom. This will be some scale I stole from some university or something. Look at all the numbers of precision. 11 numbers used to tell us what my mass was. Well, my weight in this case. Only 4 in this one. This one is much more precise. They're more significant figures, and that tells us something about the value. This one only has 4 significant figures. So when we talk about significant figures, one of the easiest things to do is to do sample problems. When you see sample problems done, sometimes you can start to see why things have significant figures that they do and others don't. It's all about, was that part of the measurement? Now we can also look at Sig Fig rules. There are tons of rules out there that you can follow and you can memorize, but really you need to practice these. You can read all these, but if you don't put them into practice, they're not going to make any sense. You've got to actually see real numbers to understand what's going to go on. Now I want to encourage you, while we're going through these Sig Figs, it is very helpful to pause the video each time I pull up a set of problems and try them out and see if you can get them correct. Again, you can read those rules over and over and over, but really doing practice problems of these is going to be your best bet. You'll start learning the patterns and figure out what's significant and what's not. And come back to that same thought. What is an actual measurement, maybe with a ruler or a scale? And if you start thinking about what's an actual measurement, that will help out. Now here are some sample problems. All of these technically should have units at the end of them to make them actually something that would have significant figures. Ours do not, and that's okay. We're just going to look at them as just the number. This is a measurement. There are 2 numbers there. Guess what? That has 2 significant figures. It must have been something that measured out to be 52. This is something that measured out 172. That has 3 significant figures. This one here, ooh, okay. Now, before we go much further, let's be clear about this. You see 3 numbers there. I understand you see 3 numbers, but this was a measuring device that may be measured by the tens, and we were at 150, 160, and we stopped at 170. Okay, so we know that this was part of the measurement and this was part of the measurement, but this was not. That was just going by tens, so there's only 2 sig figs here. Now, if you're like, no, it measured by the ones place, and it was exactly on 0, well, I put a little decimal here, and when there's a decimal here, that makes this 0 significant. So this now has 3 significant figures. But look at this. These are zeros, but they're in between 1 through 9 numbers, so those do count. So we have a total of 4 sig figs. If I go over here, I can look at this. I've got a regular number, regular number, regular number. When I say regular number, I mean 1 through 9. And here's a 0. Again, this must be something that measures by the tens place. This wasn't an actual part of the measurement. So there are just 3 significant figures. Now some of you realize, hey, if I put a dot right there, it would instantly turn into 4, but I'm not. Same thing here. Zeros in between 1 through 9, zeros in between 1 through 9, zeros between 1 through 9 is 0 at the end. We don't count that one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 sig figs. This one here, this must be some kind of device that measures by the millions. 6 million, 7 million, 8 million. There's just 1 sig fig here. But the minute I put a dot here, it must have been something that measured to the ones place. So this is just a basic look at significant figures and how to answer some of these. Let's take some more sample problems. Let's take a look at this one. It must measure to the tens place. This has 2 sig figs. This one has 3. This one, 3. This one has 3. This one here, there are just 2. This one here, these are zeros we're not going to count. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 sig figs. This one here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 sig figs. This one here, these are zeros we're not going to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 sig figs. This one here, these are zeros we're not going to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 sig figs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 sig figs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 sig figs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 sig figs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 sig figs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 sig figs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 sig figs. 1, This one here, we've got a total of 6. And this one a total of, because there's the decimal there, this one's going to count. This is 4. Now let's look at some more sample problems. We start taking a look at numbers that have spots past the decimal. So in this case, this is 450. Now why did they write 450.0? Why did they take the extra ink to do that? The only reason they must have done that is because that matters. Because they took the extra time to write that in, that must be something that measures to the tenths place. That matters, and if that matters, and this matters, everything else in between matters as well. You get a total of 4. This one, same thing. If we took the time to write 0.00, there must be a reason for that. This matters, everything else in between matters. You get a total of 5. This matters. We know that numbers 1 through 9 matter. This must be something that measures the tens, hundreds, the thousands. Everything in between has to count as well, so we get a total of 6. And in this one, we know that that 1 counts. That's something that was measured. And then we took the time to write one more 0. Why would we write one more 0 unless that was something that mattered? Because we actually took the time to write that, it matters. We need to count it, and we need to count this and everything in between. So we end up with a total of 7 significant figures. Now let's start looking at some numbers that are less than 1. In these ones, it's a little different. Because these numbers are less than 1, we need to look all the way to the right of the number and see how many things were measured. In this case, there's just one number that was measured, 1 sig fig. In this one, these don't count. They're just placeholders. This was the actual measurement. There's 1 sig fig. These ones, just placeholders. That's what counts. We get a total of 1 sig fig. In here, placeholder, 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 placeholder. These two were measurements, so we get a total of 2 sig figs. Over here, well, we know that 1 through 9 counts. Here's another one. And if we look at this 0, that's in between them, so we end up with a total of 3 sig figs. This one here, this counts, everything in between must count as well, so we get a total of 4 sig figs. This one here, we have this counting, this counting, this counting. We know this is in between numbers, so we count that. And we also know that there's no reason to write these extra ones unless they were actually part of the measurement. So we have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 6 for this one. So here's another set of problems. At this stage, go ahead and pause the video and see if you can jot down on a scrap sheet of paper what each one of these are, and I'll go through and write the answers in now. If you're still not getting these, that's okay. They'll come with time, but you have to put more practice into them. Try again the online tutorials. Again, take the time to read the rules if you'd like to, but keep practicing sig figs. There's a real reason for them. They help show us significance and precision in measuring.